Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting under the surface of a topic you've probably heard a lot about, intermittent fasting.
It's everywhere.
Exactly. And we've looked at some great sources, Healthline, Johns Hopkins Medicine, to kind of pull out the key info.
Right. The goal is to sift through everything out there.
Yeah, cut through the overload and give you the important stuff, maybe even some surprising bits about this whole eating pattern thing.
And it really is an eating pattern. That's the core idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's fundamentally about when you eat.
Not just what?
Precisely. It involves cycles, regular periods of eating, and then, well, voluntarily fasting. A lot of people use it for weight loss, sure, but there's more to it.
Okay.
Our sources suggest other potential health impacts we should definitely explore.
So it's not just randomly skipping breakfast then. It sounds more structured.
Oh, definitely structured. It's about having planned short periods where you eat very little or sometimes nothing at all.
Right.
And what's really interesting, Johns Hopkins points this out, is thinking about it historically.
How so?
Well, think about how humans evolved. Food wasn't always just there.
Like hunter-gatherers.
Exactly. Our ancestors went through periods without food naturally. Their bodies were actually, well, kind of designed to handle that, to function well during those fasting times.
Huh. That really puts a different spin on it. Because now...
It's the opposite, right? Food everywhere, constant access, often paired with less activity, maybe more screen time, more snacking.
Yeah, it's easy to see how that happens.
And that mismatch between calories in and energy out can cause problems. Which brings us to this idea Johns Hopkins talks about metabolic switching.
Metabolic switching. Okay, what's that?
Think of it like this. Your body uses sugar for quick energy, but after you haven't eaten for several hours, those sugar stores run low.
Okay.
So the body has to switch. It starts burning its stored fat for fuel instead.
Ah, like flicking a switch from sugar burning to fat burning mode? A backup generator, kind of?
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Tapping into reserves.
Okay. So for anyone listening who's curious, there seem to be a few main ways people actually do intermittent fasting. Can we walk through those?
Absolutely. Let's start with probably the most popular one, the 168 method.
16-8. Heard of that one.
Right. So you basically restrict your eating to an 8-hour window each day.
And then fast for the other 16 hours.
Exactly. And the appeal is flexibility. You pick the 8 hours, maybe noon to 8 p.m. That works for dinners.
Or like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. if you're an early bird.
Precisely. Fits different lifestyles.
And there's actual research on this one, right? I think I saw something about blood pressure benefits.
You did. Healthline mentions research suggesting 168 might help prevent hypertension. And it often leads to eating less overall, which helps with weight.
Makes sense.
What's really interesting now, though, is some newer research, like a 2023 review. It found 168 is effective for weight control in adults with overweight or obesity. But it also suggested that when that 8-hour window is earlier in the day might actually lead to better weight loss.
Oh, interesting. Like maybe linked to our body clocks.
Could be. And better effects on glucose metabolism, too. Plus, for people worried about losing muscle.
Yeah, that's a common concern.
A 2019 study showed 168 didn't seem to hurt muscle or strength gains in women doing resistance training.
That's good to know. Okay, so that's 168. What's another common one?
The 5.2 diet, maybe you've heard of this?
Vaguely. How does that one work?
So, for 5 days a week, you just eat normally. No major restrictions.
Okay.
But then, on 2 days of the week, and they shouldn't be consecutive days.
Right, not back to...
You cut your calories way down, usually to around 500 calories for the whole day.
Wow. Okay. So 2 very low-calorie days spread out through the week.
Pretty much. And studies, like one from 2018, suggest it can be just as good as cutting calories every single day for losing weight. And also for managing blood sugar in people with type 2 diabetes. Another study found it works similarly to continuous calorie restriction for weight loss and preventing things like heart disease.
Interesting comparison. Okay. Then there's one called Eat, Stop, Eat. Sounds pretty straightforward.
It is direct, yeah. With Eat, Stop, Eat, you do a full 24-hour fast once or twice a week.
A whole day without eating.
Correct. On non-consecutive days. So maybe you finish dinner Monday, and then you don't eat again until dinner Tuesday.
Okay.
On the other days, you normally, though, healthy eating is still a good idea.
Naturally.
The thinking is simple. Fewer eating days means fewer overall calories, which helps with weight loss. Plus, that 24-hour stretch might really push that metabolic switch towards fat burning.
Makes sense. But is there much research specifically on this one?
That's the thing. Healthline notes that more research is still needed to really understand its specific effects compared to other methods.
Gotcha. Okay, moving on. What about alternate day fasting? ADF.
Right, ADF. The name says it all, really. You alternate.
Yeah.
One day fasting, one day eating normally.
Every other day. Seems intense.
It can be. There are variations, though. Some people do a complete fast, just water, maybe black coffee or tea. Others do a modified fast on those days, eating maybe around 500 calories, similar to the 5.2 approach, but more frequent.
Ah, okay. A bit more manageable, perhaps.
Maybe. And research, like a 2016 study, found it was as effective as daily calorie cutting for weight loss in adults with obesity. Another study showed people naturally ate way fewer calories overall and lost weight pretty quickly, like in 4 weeks, doing alternate 24-hour fasts.
Any other benefits noted?
Some hints towards better cardiovascular health, especially if you combine it with exercise. But yeah, it's a bigger commitment. Healthline suggests maybe starting with a modified version if you're new to it.
Good tip. Okay, last one on the list, the warrior diet. Sounds intense.
It definitely has a dramatic name. This one involves a really long fasting window, like 20 hours a day.
20 hours? Wow. What do you eat? Or do you eat?
You eat very little during those 20 hours. Maybe small amounts of raw fruit or veg, some dairy or eggs, definitely non-calorie fluids. It's more like under-eating.
Okay, so minimal intake for 20 hours. Then what?
Then you have a 4-hour window, usually in the evening, where you eat your main meal or meals. The focus is supposed to be on unprocessed healthy foods during that window.
Right. Any science behind this specific structure?
Well, Healthline mentions some animal studies on time-restricted feeding patterns like this, showing potential benefits like preventing diabetes, maybe slowing tumor growth, even increasing lifespan in rodents.
Interesting. But in animals, what about people?
That's less clear. A 2020 study didn't find that a 4-hour window was any better than a 6-hour window, for instance. So we need more research on the weight loss effects in humans. And importantly, there's a real concern with this one.
What's that?
Because it's so restrictive, there's a potential risk it could trigger or worsen disordered eating patterns for some people.
That's a crucial point. You need to be really mindful of your relationship with food with that one.
Absolutely. Very important consideration.
Okay, so definitely a range of methods out there. Seems like something for different preferences. Now, let's dig into what's actually happening inside the body. Hormones, right? How does fasting affect them?
Yes, this is key. Think about body fat. It's stored energy.
Right.
When you fast, your body needs to get at that stored energy. And doing that involves changing hormone levels.
Like which ones?
A major player is insulin. After you eat, insulin tells your cells to take up sugar from your blood.
For energy or storage.
Exactly. But when you're fasting, insulin levels go way down.
Okay.
And that drop in insulin is actually a signal. It makes it easier for your body to start breaking down and burning stored fat.
So less insulin means more access to fat stores. Makes sense. Any others?
Yeah, another important one is norepinephrine or noradrenaline.
Sounds like an adrenaline type thing.
Sort of. Your nervous system releases it, partly in response to the stress of not eating. It sends signals directly to your fat cells,
Telling them why.
telling them to break down fat into free fatty acids, which can then be used for energy.
Okay. So actively promotes fat breakdown.
And research backs this up. Studies on alternate day fasting and whole day fasting show they can increase fat burning and lead to reductions in body weight and body fat.
Got it. What about human growth hormone HGH? That often comes up in fasting discussions.
It does. And for a while, the thinking was that HGH levels go up during fasting, and this helps burn fat.
Right, I've heard that.
But more recent research, as Healthline points out, paints a slightly different picture. It seems HGH might actually signal the brain to conserve energy.
Conserve energy. How would that affect weight loss?
Well, it could potentially work against long-term weight loss by, say, increasing appetite or slightly decreasing your metabolism.
Oh, so the HGH connection might be more complicated than just more HGH equals more fat burning.
Exactly. It seems the role of HGH here isn't quite as straightforwardly positive for weight loss as we once thought.
Okay, so hormonal shifts are happening, facilitating fat access. But it sounds like the main reason people lose weight with intermittent fasting is actually simpler.
It really is, fundamentally.
Yeah.
Healthline puts it clearly. The number one reason is usually just eating fewer calories overall.
Because you're skipping meals during the fasts.
Precisely. Unless you go wild and really overeat during your eating window.
Which some people might be tempted to do.
True. But generally, those fasting periods lead to a net calorie deficit over the week or day.
And that deficit drives the weight loss.
Exactly. There was a big review in 2020, looked at lots of trials, and it found weight loss ranging from like less than 1% up to 13% of starting body weight over 2 to 12 weeks.
That's quite a range, but definitely shows it works for many.
Yeah, it shows it can be a pretty convenient way to create that calorie deficit without necessarily having to count every single calorie you eat.
That's a big plus for many people, I imagine. But just starting isn't enough, right? To make it work long-term, what are the keys?
Good question. Healthline lays out some important factors for success. First off, food quality.
Still matters what you eat during the eating window.
Absolutely. Focusing on whole, unprocessed foods helps with overall health and keeps you feeling full, which makes fasting easier.
Makes sense.
What else? Calories. Even though you might not be counting strictly, you still need to eat normally during your eating times. Avoid binging or drastically overcompensating.
Right. Don't undo the fasting period.
Exactly. Then there's consistency. Sticking with your chosen schedule is crucial for your body to adapt and to see results.
It's a habit change, like anything else.
And that leads to patience. It takes time. Your body needs to adjust to the new rhythm. Those first few fasts might feel tough.
I can imagine retraining hunger cues.
Yeah. So patience is key.
What about exercise? How does that fit in?
Both sources recommend it. Strength training in particular seems beneficial.
Why strength training?
It helps burn fat, obviously, but importantly, it helps you hold on to your muscle mass while you're in a calorie deficit from the fasting.
Good point. Don't want to lose muscle along with fat.
Right. And one more point on calories, while you might not need to count it first if your weight loss stalls.
Hits a plateau.
Yeah. Then tracking your intake for a bit can be useful to see what's going on and maybe make adjustments.
Okay, practical tips. Now, we've talked a lot about weight loss, but Johns Hopkins mentioned other potential benefits too, right? Beyond the scale.
Yes, definitely. Research is looking into several areas. One is thinking and memory.
Oh, how so?
Some studies, mostly in animals, but some in humans too, suggest potential improvements in things like working memory and verbal memory.
Interesting. What else?
Heart health. There's evidence linking intermittent fasting to improvements in blood pressure, resting heart rate, and other cardiovascular markers.
Okay.
Also, physical performance. Some studies found young men lost fat but kept muscle mass, and animal studies showed improved endurance.
So potentially good for body composition and maybe even endurance. What about major conditions like type 2 diabetes?
That's a really big area of research. Animal studies suggest IF might help prevent obesity in the first place.
Okay.
And in adults who already have obesity, we know it helps with weight loss. For people with type 2 diabetes, research suggests it could help regulate blood sugar, improve how the body uses insulin, and lower insulin levels overall.
That sounds significant.
It is. Some studies, though they need careful medical supervision, even hinted that some individuals might be able to reduce or potentially even stop needing insulin therapy.
Wow. That's potentially life-changing, but definitely needs a doctor involved.
Absolutely crucial. And one more area, animal studies suggest benefits for tissue health, like maybe reducing damage during surgery.
Okay, so a wide range of potential upsides being explored, but we absolutely have to talk about safety. This isn't for everyone, is it?
No, definitely not. And this is critical. Both Healthline and Johns Hopkins stress, talk to your doctor before starting any intermittent fasting plan.
Non-negotiable first step.
Absolutely. And there are specific groups who should probably avoid it altogether.
Who are they?
Children and teens under 18, women who are pregnant or breastfeeding.
Okay, makes sense.
Also, people with type 1 diabetes, especially if they use insulin, because the risk of dangerously low blood sugar hypoglycemia is too high.
Very important distinction there, type 1.
Yes. And finally, anyone with a history of eating disorders. The restrictive nature could be very problematic.
Right. So those groups should steer clear. What about everyone else? Is it generally safe?
For people who don't fall into those categories, yes. Intermittent fasting can be a safe approach. It might even be sustainable long-term for some.
Not.
But you still need to listen to your body. That's crucial. If you start fasting and experience things like unusual anxiety, really bad headaches, ongoing nausea.
Don't just push through.
No. Talk to your doctor. Those could be signs it's not right for you, or that you need to adjust something.
Okay. Good advice. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway message for people listening?
I think the core message is that intermittent fasting can be a useful tool, primarily for weight loss achieved by eating fewer calories.
Right. The calorie deficit is key.
Yes. And alongside that, there are these potential hormonal shifts and other health benefits, heart health, maybe brain health that are interesting, though the research is still growing.
And we covered the main ways to do it, 168, 5.2.
Eat, stop, eat, alternate day fasting, the warrior diet, Lots of options with different structures.
But the single most important piece of advice before anyone even thinks about trying one of these...
Talk to doctor. Seriously. Especially if you have any underlying health conditions, it's just essential to make sure it's appropriate and safe for you personally.
Absolutely. So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is this. Once you've had that chat with your doctor, consider which, if any, of these approaches might actually fit your life and your goals. And maybe think beyond just the weight aspect. Could this ancient pattern of eating offer other long-term benefits for your overall well-being? Definitely something interesting to explore further. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.